First and foremost, I am impressed by His grace. He has integrated not only the Constitution, but also devolution. And he has integrated up to the latest practice and malpractice. He's in touch. Compare the Archbishop and the questioners who came from the floor who asked the obvious. How did he get the information and you didn't get it? That's my challenge, first challenge. How did he get the information and you didn't get it? Now, part of my previous activities, I was a teacher. And teachers give homework, isn't it? So before I give the lesson, I give the homework. For you to ensure that you will never ask me the questions you asked this morning, I want you to know that there is a book called the Devolution Grey Book, and it is available at the government printer. And that Devolution Grey Book has about 6 or 7 pieces of legislation. First one is the Kenya Constitution 2010. Then, without any following any order, it has the County Governments Act, the Intergovernmental Relations Act, the Transition to Devolved Government Act, Urban Areas and Cities Act, Public Finance Management Act, and finally, Transition County Allocation Revenue Act. What do these acts do? And by the way, in this forum, and as you go out and as you sit, never, ever, ever use the word local government. And never, ever use the word central government. Because on 4th midnight, we buried both institutions, 6 feet under. And to revive them is not a mortal sin, but it can be a menial sin. And one of the people who committed a menial sin is the Bishop of Malindi, by saying central government. But that one you can be forgiven easily, although I don't have the powers to forgive. But for purposes of us all, we are in a devolved system of governance. A devolved system of governance, which means we have 48 governments. 48 governments. First, the national government. Secondly, the 47 county governments. 47 county governments. According to Article 6.2, and even according to Article 2, those are called 2 levels of government. And unlike the Senate and the National Assembly, they don't have this struggle for upper or lower. They are just called levels of government, which are distinct and interdependent. They are distinct and interdependent. And when we describe them, we don't see them in a relationship of upper or higher or superior. We see them in terms of a parallel, one on the left and the 47 on the right. Because they are both governments, and you understand why they are both governments. They are governments because they are enjoined at the hip by the word devolution. And what we must start by doing is to define what is devolution. And in a very simplistic form, devolution will mean sharing of power, administration, and resources. Power, administration, and resources. And for those who are looking for a common understanding of devolution, for those who are looking for devolution and wondering when it will come, let me tell you one thing. In Kiswahili, ukiona kimeelewa, kinaelea, ukiona kinaelea kimeundwa. Is it true? On 3rd of March, how many of you had a governor and a county? Hands up. On the 5th of March, how many had a governor and a county? Hands up. All of us. 5th of March. Of course, we did our elections on 4th of March, isn't it? We elected governors. We elected the assembly representatives. So on the 5th, whether you could touch them or not, you had a governor somewhere, not yet sworn by this Kinuthia Wamwangi. You had a county assembly somewhere, not even inducted. And later you are going to have a speaker, isn't it? Today, you have a county government constituting of, when you talk of a county government, you're not talking of a governor. You are talking of a county government that constitutes of a governor, the executive committee, chief officers, and other officers. County service, county public service board, and that is the lineage of the executive arm of a county government. Today you are talking of a speaker, you are talking of a county assembly representatives, and you are talking of a county assembly service board. The board employs on one side and on the other. So have you seen advertisements coming from the county government of Bungoma announcing for employees? Have you applied? You are getting late. Apply quickly. Now, it means that we now have government, we have parliaments, and we have governors in place. Do you have a budget or not for each county? No, never mind whether it's perfect or imperfect. Do you have a budget? Yes. Did they pass a budget? Why are you in denial? Do you have a budget? Yes. Imperfect or perfect? You see, don't say they. Which of us doesn't come from a county? Talk about your county. Begin to be nationalistic about your county. Ethnicity or no ethnicity, talk about your county. For me, I talk about Nakuru County because that's where I was born and that's where I want to be buried. That's my county. I live in Thika, all right, with Mumbi Wangaro, 40 years, but I will not be buried in Thika, I will be buried in Nakuru. I'm just an expatriate in that county. So, each one of us have got a budget. One thing, probably you are still waiting for it to come to the national. No. One of these acts, the Public Finance Act, has allowed, once you transfer the 210 billion, and you have given the 7 billion to that famous Kakamega governor, all he needs is to prepare the budget, take it to the assembly. If it passes the assembly, it goes in something called appropriation bill. Once he signs that bill, himself now in a kind of retro president power, he signs it. It becomes an act of parliament, not a bylaw. An act of parliament. An act of parliament, but the parliament of the county. So it's an act like any other. So there are 3 bodies that can make acts. The county assembly, the Senate, and the National Assembly. So this money will never come to anybody else. The only thing we heard from Senator Alachi is that just like you have the government bank account in central bank called what? consolidated consolidated fund. Also now each county has got a county fund in the central bank. But to access that money, the 7 billion, you must write a requisition through the controller of budget and tell her what you want to do with that money, and that's how it will be allowed. And the Senate, we have been told, have decided you will withdraw only once in a month, right? So, if we look at devolution as the sharing of power, on 28th of February, I devolved formally local government powers through Kenya Gazette Notice number 16. On 9th of August, I transferred over 80% of the remaining functions to the counties through Gazette 116. To get that book, you need a good 3,000 shillings from the government printer. But you see, it's a choice you don't have. You must have it because you must know your county, what functions they have. Because how would you hold them to account? So what we have said here, very quickly, the County Governments Act is the former Local Government Act because it is the one that gives you the structures and the systems of administration in the county. The Intergovernmental Relations Act is the conflict resolution mechanism that the governments, the two levels of government use. It creates a council of governors where if the counties disagree with one another, they go to the council of governors. But if the two levels disagree, they go to the summit. There is a technical committee that keeps things running around. Then we have the Transition to Devolved Government Act that has brought this 3-year transition and has brought Transition Authority into being. And it has given us 15 responsibilities, some of which is to stop you from grabbing those machinery that were left behind or any assets of government. And nobody in Kenya can transfer any assets without asking permission from the Transition Authority. The other one is to analyze, determine, assign, and transfer functions, which we have done. And the other one, most important, is capacity building, including civic education. That's part of our work, among others. So that is what that act does. And just for the sake of Honorable Mumbingaro, the only reason we are having these 3 years, and particularly the roads, is not, we didn't leave the roads, majority of roads behind so that we can benefit the people you know of numbers, but actually to benefit the other group. I'll tell you how. This is what's not understood. In our analysis, we realized that the government was in the process of reclassifying roads. And some of those roads that were no roads, you know, they are in Northeastern. A bush is called a road because it's supposed to be a road, but there is no road, only growth. We were promised that those can be classified even as Class A roads, so that a road will come from Kisumu to Moyale, across those bushes. So we agreed to have a road conference where now the Ministry of Infrastructure can draw those roads and we touch them and we say from now onwards, open them up. So we are doing it for the marginalized areas to make sure that they also have roads like other people. If we transferred the bush, how would those counties be able to open up with the 210 billion, with nothing billions, you know? They can't be able to do that. So it is for the benefit of the marginalized that we are doing that. And very few functions now are remaining, very few. But we shall make sure that they go either before the budget or very early of the next budget cycle. We don't want to retain functions because the sooner the people get used to them, the better. So I would like you to know that then we have Urban Areas and Cities Act. There are two systems of management in the counties. One is the rural, the other one is urban. In the rural, you have what used to be districts, and they also used to be counted to be, and they are also the constituencies. In our language of devolved system, we call them sub-counties. So a former district now will be called a sub-county. There will be no more district. So you have the sub-county, which is the district, and you have the ward, which is between the ward and the division. And that's where the representative comes from. Then you have the village. That's one system. The other system, you have the city, you have the municipality, and you have the town. All of them, the city has a board and a city manager in a decentralized form. A municipality will have a municipality board and a municipal manager. The town will have a committee which is not incorporated with a town administrator. The others have sub-county administrator, ward administrator, village administrator. All of them will have committees. Recently, when we were looking at the cities, according to urban areas and cities, we found that only Nakuru and Eldoret qualify through population only to be municipalities and to be cities. And therefore, what we have done is that we have floated that, we have put it in the newspaper for you to participate. So now, Thika, Honorable Mbombi town is now a town. Kakamega, Honorable Alachi's town, the municipality is a town. So all of them are towns. Karatina, which used to be a municipality, is even worse. It is a market center. So, the Public Finance Management Act is the one that controls the use of money, both by the counties and the national government. And the Transition County Allocation Revenue Act. People have been wondering where we got the money that we gave the counties that they could not spend. That is the act where we made that, we prepared the budget for them that they could use in the last quarter. But you know, the most harangued, the most harassed, the most is Kinuthia Wamwangi, isn't it? We prepared all this good assumption of office. You see how we landed the governors. You see how we landed the speakers, how we landed these people. We gave them a very good budget that they cannot even finish, and they still want my head. But one thing I'll say, and that's what Senator Alachi always reminds me, Kinuthia, act within the law. And if you have seen any problems arising, is because I say, I don't know what you'd call tyranny of whatever. When you are told you must transfer all the functions at once, it must be tyranny of something, isn't it? So when you say no, surely you must hang, isn't it? But I'm still alive to tell the story. So we have managed now to settle. We have agreed we shall all follow the law. And as far as civic education is concerned, it is here the biggest responsibility now lies with each county government. First of all, Transition Authority and the Ministry of Devolution must come with a national framework for civic education. And from that framework, each county must come with a designed method where they must carry out civic education together with non-state actors. And because Dr. Kuria here, we had said we want a conference, we want to involve the religious factor, all the Muslims, the Catholics, the NCK, NCCK. That conference must take place so that we tell them where to come in. You can imagine if His Grace knows the Constitution so well. What about the other bishop and every pastor? If they knew the same, what would happen to this country? Everybody would know the law, isn't it? So we want to involve them in this thing through the conference like this. Maybe Haki and Amani can organize another one for us. And we come here and agree how we are going to approach this with the county government. We can even call the governors And we have mkataba. Me, I like writing a lot of MOUs. We have an MOU of how we are going to involve the civil society, how we are going to involve everybody. And that is where each governor, first of all, function number 14 says that the governor has a duty to ensure that the public are involved in all activities of government. And therefore, besides that, in the County Governments Act, he is also bound, and I say he advisedly because there is no woman governor. He is bound to ensure that whether you are doing spatial planning, budget, or everything, you must involve the citizen. But when you talk about demand-driven, why must you beg? Article 1 says the sovereign power of the people resides in who? In the sovereign power of Kenya resides in who? In the people. What about Honorable Alachi, Honorable Nyokabi, Honorable Mombi? Who are they? They are your representatives, and they only exercise that power on your behalf, isn't it? Also, the judiciary exercises that power on your behalf. So why should you beg for what is yours? Kenyans have begged for so long they have forgotten. Even when you give them the rights, they forget to use them. So participation is your right, you must demand. When we talk of information, go to the same act, the County Governments Act. It has a whole chapter on communication and the right of the people to get information. Article 35 of the Constitution says that you can demand any information from a government office. So you should not be beggars of information. You should not be beggars of service. You should not be beggars of anything. You should be commanders for service delivery. And I agree, these functions, moving arrow, that we have taken to the mashinani, these functions are about service delivery. The national government has been left majorly with the policy making and standards. Therefore, we have transferred service delivery. To who? To you. Subsidiarity. We recognize the village as the lowest level of subsidiarity. So, let us agree, ladies and gentlemen, it is we who are at fault because devolution left port. It left the harbor on 4th of March. If you are not in it, then you are out of order. So catch up with the boat. It is in the sea. Devolution is started and is gone and is here with us. You are devolution yourself.